Hello everyone and welcome to another very interesting video as always with these feature videos. So, have you ever wondered which Group 3 car is the fastest? 0 to 100 miles an hour. So essentially it's the best at grid starts. Have you ever wondered which has the highest top speed? Probably not, because we all pretty much know what the answer to that is. Or potentially the best car that can have a slipstream with. So, you know, it's in its last gear, its final gear, and it's just struggling to get to its top speed, but with a bit of slipstream it could get there and suddenly it'll be the best. Well, that was the goal of this video, or originally was anyway, until we discovered something very interesting, which we'll look at a little bit later on. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at every single Group 3 car in Gran Turismo Sport. We're going to put them on racing super soft tyres, so traction isn't a huge factor with the grid starts. I know we don't use them in the races, but it's just to get an idea of what is actually the best car at that 0 to 100 miles an hour time. Obviously, it would change with traction, of course. And then we are using the balance performance for circuits. So obviously, as of this moment in time, which is 8th of May. And basically, we're going to test all of these on Tokyo East in a loop, because basically it's got last corner, you come out, we can stop at the split area. So we've got the same start-finish line for every car. We're then going to accelerate away. We're going to measure the 0 to 100 miles an hour time. We're then going to see the speed at the start-finish line, and then we're going to see the speed at the 200-meter board for turn 1. Let me demonstrate this a little bit better for you than just describing it, because that way you can see what I did for every single car and get an idea of how you could replicate this if you want to just test it out yourself, or whether you want to try something a little bit different. So here we are. We select the car. We're already at the track, of course, because we've gone through the test. As you can see by all the Group 3 cars we picked there. We go straight to car settings. And what we do is make sure all the level ups are all on 3. And then we apply the circuit balance of performance there. Make sure we're on super soft tyres. And then we scroll down and just have a look for the RPM number there, which is 7,000 at the top right hand side. So that's the number I'm going to change my gear at, okay? Just to put that out there so everybody knows what RPM I'm going to be changing at. So then we're going to race round this last corner on the super soft tyres, obviously. So we've got grip for a fortnight. And we're going to head towards the split here, the split line. And that's where we're going to start off with this test, the acceleration test and the speed test. So we're just lining up here. We're always going to stay in the left lane as well. We don't venture from the left lane. It's always a left lane. There we go. So, traction control on 1. We then rev the engine, handbrake on. And as we release the handbrake, release now, and you can see we've released it. And we're going to take note of that time in the bottom left there, 32.800. Nice and easy for us to do. So now we just drive as normal, trying to hit the gears. Now this Volkswagen, you have to really shift. We've not traction control off quite early there because we don't need it anymore. And then we get to 100 mile an hour. And we have a look at that time again. So 40.466. Nice and easy. 7.666 seconds. Yes, it's the beast number there. So now we know that. Now you'll go, oh, that's 1,000 different to the spreadsheet, Tidge. Yes, it is indeed. Because this is a different run, but it shows you that we're within that time variation. You know, it's the same run we've done twice, and it's equal there or thereabouts. So it is fine to me in terms of data. When we get to the start-finish line here, just as we cross it, we take note of the speed there. 167 miles an hour for this Volkswagen Vision Gran Turismo car. The same as the test I did previously with the audio that failed, of course. As I say, the audio failed for all of them. So any footage you see here is just a rerun, basically. We then go up the hill, staying in this left-hand lane, and then obviously we're going to go to the left. And as we get to the highway markers in the middle, so we come around this left here, and you see those highway markers there, and it's at the 200 just below the rear view mirror. We take note of the speed there, 170 miles an hour there for the Volkswagen Vision Gran Turismo car. So that's the job done at that point. So we just brake now, and then we're going to exit to the main menu. Now what we do here, and this is what I did in my car profiles as well back in the day, is we just make sure we ran the BOP, and we did. Happy days, job done. So let's have a look at the results then. And first up, we're going to look at the 0 to 100 mile an hour test. So you can see McLaren F1 at the top, Ferrari second, which we sort of knew. It's a very fast accelerating car. The interesting part here is P4, 5 and 6 there. FR cars actually towards the front. Now I suspect that's to do with the superior grip of the super soft tyres, and that there's going to be a difference as we go through the tyres. Now I'm going to get onto that a little bit later on, because I did do a little bit of a test afterwards. Even so, we go on to the next page. Aston Martin, we know pulls once it gets going. You know, once it's got the grip there, it can pull away. P16, BMW Z4. That's interesting, isn't it? Down under the 7-second margin there. So Z4 not actually being at the back for once is a very interesting one. As we continue on to page 3, then Audi just under that 7-second margin. Then we get into the 7 seconds. Mitsubishi Lancer up in P22 there. Porsche down in P30. RCZ P26. So a lot of those MR cars are expected to be higher are not. The Mazda seems to have improved from our car profile to now, which is interesting. Seems to improve by quite a margin there. And then finally, the last page, the Renault. Poor Renault, the only car in the 8-second margin. We know it's slow. It's slow at accelerating. It's slow in terms of speed, as you will see shortly. But the Atenza was also a big surprise. That felt very boggy. It really did feel very boggy, that Atenza. McLaren 650S as well, another surprise there. So that's going to be that in terms of the 0 to 100 mile an hour test. We also logged the speed at the start-finish line. So let's have a look at the speeds there. McLaren top there. Then it's Ford GT. So you're expecting the normal contenders here now in terms of speed. One surprise there. P8, the BMW M3 GT. Pretty quick in a straight line. Made top 10 there, which is interesting to say the least as we continue on. So we're now down to 165 miles an hour. Remember, the leader was 170. So there's a 5 miles an hour difference here now between these cars at the bottom end of this page and the lead car. As we go on to the next page, we get into the slower area. Audi down in P22, 164 miles an hour. 163 down for the Z4 in P30. Poor Z4. You know, it got at one point, but then it's just dropped off. 163. That's 7 miles an hour difference. That's substantial to me. It really is. 163 is the lowest for all cars there. Obviously, it's in alphabetical order when it's a tied speed. But you can see there Honda, Lexus, Mazda, the RX Vision, which might explain why it wasn't as good at Fuji than we potentially would have expected in terms of the tyre and fuels. We jump then to the top speed plus revs percentage left. So McLaren, by the end of it, 174, absolutely dominating. Peugeot Vision Gran Turismo really has some pace in there. 25% of the bar still to go there in terms of revs remaining. That's the bar that goes across the top of the Speedo. But you can see they're all 170 plus here. BMW M3 staying in that same position. We go to the next page then, and one interesting one here, Toyota FT1, 170 miles an hour, so it's quick. But it's got 0% left. So it's at the limiter already at that point. So slipstream not going to be good for that kind of car. That's what it kind of means here. When there's 75% of the bar remaining, like the Mazda RX Vision, it can go for days in that slipstream because it's got so much left to give in terms of rev output. And we know that with the Audi in P25. We know in slipstream that car can fly, but it needs a slipstream. And it doesn't have it, unfortunately. So it instantly drops down a tad. RCZ down there as well, and the Porsche. I expect them to be similar. The Porsche and the RCZ, very similar cars. And as we head towards the back then, the Renault and the Mazda Atenza right at the back. I did, you know, one of the other big things here that I haven't actually mentioned, the Lexus, the RCF prototype and the RCF, very different. Very, very different. The DBR9, by the way, 100% is at the end of... Oh, no, sorry, it's at the beginning of the bar, so slipstream, it'll go for days. Go for absolute days if it adds some slipstream there, the Aston Martin DBR9. So that's it in terms of the results. There will be a spreadsheet for you to check out in the description. If I haven't forgotten to add it, just shout at me if I've forgotten to add it. Now it gets to the interesting part, which is the additional test I did. So I did an additional test in terms of the start and the 0 to 100 time. And that involved tyre changes and traction control. And I discovered something. I discovered something very interesting. Let's jump to it now. So here we are with the Volkswagen Vision Gran Turismo car on hard tyres. Notice the time, 27.333. Now, I ran all the tyres after this particular test. I ran mediums and softs as well just to see this because I'm about to get mind blown. And you're about to get interested as well, I imagine, because we raced to 100 and it is 34.833. But that's 7.5 seconds. That's 1.5 tenths quicker than the super soft tyre. That doesn't make sense. It should be that the less grip you have, the longer it takes to get to 100. Why is it suddenly going quicker? Well, here, look at this then. Traction control here. This is a run with traction control permanently on. 4 down in the bottom right, 3 in the top left. They started at the exact same time. There's a speed difference. Now we can continue accelerating. Nothing's changed here. Foot to the floor, traction control 1 only. Now look, top left is ahead. 25 versus 23. So what we're seeing here is that traction control, the more it is used, the more dynamic it is, essentially, because now we have a big speed difference. Now, we're going to change gear slightly differently here. You notice how it took a bit longer down the bottom right to catch up as well, and then they get into sync very quickly. Obviously, there's going to be some user errors in terms of getting the revs exact and bang on the 7K that we're after. We're going to continue on to the 100 mile an hour. And what you're going to see here is the top left one is 7.71 seconds and the bottom right is 7.8 seconds. That's a tenth. A tenth is a lot. That's a lot in qualifying. We've seen places gained, multiple places gained by that sort of time difference there. So what we've seen and identified randomly out the blue is that traction control can have a significant difference when it's being used substantially. So obviously in this case, the hard tyre, the rear wheels on an FR car are going to spin more than normal. So potentially 100% of the throttle or very close to it is going to use the traction control. Therefore, there's differences there in terms of the time and pace to get up to 100 miles an hour. When I ran it on the mediums and ran it on the softs, the times came back appropriately. They were just slightly slower each time than the super softs. The softs was slightly slower than the super soft, the mediums slightly slower than the softs. It was just the hard tyre, which was completely out the blue, random. Really was random. I don't quite get it, but you've seen there a little bit of a difference. It doesn't explain the 7.5 second 0 to 100 earlier on either, other than the fact that with those gear shifts, because traction control was on permanently throughout those second runs, remember in our driving school episode about traction control and accelerating, each time we change gear with traction control, we lose half a tenth. So theoretically, the 7.717 that we got is actually a 0.5 something because we changed gear 3 times. We're in 4th gear when we got there. Very, very, very interesting end to the video, I've got to say. And I'm going to test that traction control a little bit more, I think. Very interesting to see that it's dynamic. And it sort of brings in an element of RNG into racing, which none of us really want. But yeah, let me do a bit more testing with that one. Maybe you want to do some testing as well. But that is going to be it for me now, folks. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. There's a video on your screen there that actually isn't live. It's unlisted. It's the Fugu Frenzy livery competition finale. Can you check it out, please? Can you vote for your favorite livery? The winner gets a prize. So if you can help out, that would be beautiful. If not, my logo's there. If you want to subscribe, please do give the video a like if you did enjoy it. If you want any changes, do let me know. But that's going to be it for me now, folks. Au revoir and farewell.